well, I thought I'll make this tutorial to help other artists have the ability to also create their own stretched canvases that they could paint on. It really saves money. Maybe you live in a place that you don't have access to easily buy canvases, or maybe you want a canvas that is maybe a huge size that your local art shop just doesn't sell, and it's probably easier and cheaper to create your own. So this is what I did recently. I had to create a 2.5 by 1.5 meter painting. So I created my own stretched canvas. Basically, I just bought some wooden branding from the local hardware here, and then the 4 sides I cut, and then I cut the ends at a 45-degree angle. I used a miter saw. It's way more accurate than a miter box where you use a hand saw. So if you are able to afford a miter saw, this is the best and most accurate way to cut the wood. So once you got the 4 sides, you want to taper the inside edge of the wood, and basically give it a beveled edge. The reason why we do this is, as you see demonstrated here, is that when the canvas is stretched over just a square piece of wood, it leaves this mark once you draw or paint on it, and it's really unattractive, something you want to avoid. You don't want this mark appearing on your final artwork. So you need to make a beveled edge on your wood in order to avoid this from happening. So the best way to achieve this is to use a wood planer. Also, you could use a hand planer, but it's way better to get an electric one. It goes much faster, and you want to really get a basic angle on it so that the inside edge is not touching the canvas. The next step in the process is basically to sand all the edges of the 4 frames, because you really don't want any sharp edges. The sharp edges will cut into the canvas and wear it out. So just sand the edges nice and smooth, and then you're basically ready to start gluing the corners together. So what I normally do, I just use a little bit of wood glue at each corner, and then I use a square to make sure that the corners are nice and accurately squared. I just staple them, and this holds everything in place. Sometimes I allow it to fully dry, and then once it's fully dried and pretty strong, I come back with a drilling machine and drill a couple of pilot holes in each corner, and then I can really strengthen it by using some screws, putting a screw in each corner, and this will really give strength to the frame and hold it together. It won't be strong enough if you just use glue and staples. I have done that in the past, and it's come undone. So the best way is to use some long screws to keep everything together. Of course, if there's any staples or screws or nails sticking up, you really want to hammer them down flat. You don't want them touching the canvas or rubbing on the canvas in any way. Otherwise it might cause a hole. So once all the ends are firmly joined together with screws and glue, then you want to put some supports roughly in the center. In this case, because it was such a large canvas, I wanted to put 2 supports in the center, roughly equally spaced from one another. I used just thin Meranti hardwood. Same method, basically glue, staples, and then I also put some braces in the corners of each one. Also using the miter saw, I just cut them at 45-degree angles, and then also I stapled and glued, as well as drilled pilot holes and just used some small nails to hold everything together. And this really gives a really strong support to the whole frame. It really strengthens it, prevents it from flexing or bending, because when you lay out the canvas and you start pulling it and stapling it, it exerts a lot of force, external force, on these outer wooden frames. So that's why you really want the corner braces and the center braces to strengthen the whole frame. So to attach the canvas, basically I used a staple gun. The best method to do this is you start from the center of each side, and then you work your way towards the edges. And the reason you do this is it helps to alleviate any folds or creases in the canvas, and by the end of it you should have a really nice, smooth, crease-free stretched canvas. And then basically you're just left with the corners. Now the corners, they don't really have to be that complicated. I just fold one edge over. It might take you a couple of tries to get it nice and neat, but this is basically how I do it. I just try and tuck it in and fold it over, and then just give it a couple of staples to hold it all together. Normally I place the fold on the top of the frame and the bottom of the frame, so the folds do not appear on the side of the frame, just so that you don't see it when it's hanging from the side. So I mixed all the paint in a large bowl. In this case I just used acrylic primer undercoat, and I did 2 coats. The first coat in the night, and then the following morning I put on the second coat. The best way to do it is to let it dry between coats and to sand it to get off any rough edges, and then you'll be done, and you'll have a canvas to your size and liking.